welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. And for this is going to be a Giallo film that I was really looking forward to because I've heard nothing but great things about it. And so I was very excited to see it. And it's from 1974 and directed by Francesco Barilli, who had only directed 2 films. This, one other one, he was a screenwriter on Man from Deep River, but he was more of an actor. And it is The Perfume of the Lady in Black. Now, I know there's a Blu-ray of this, and this is the first one I have from Raro Video. They put out a lot of Italian films that are on my list. I also have Plot of Fear coming. That's put out by Raro Video. Slaughter Hotel, Play Motel. I was going to get Murder Obsession, but that one's unable to get where I go. I'm going to have to find it online somewhere. But Lamberto Bava's Body Puzzle was also put out by them. So they put out a lot of Italian films and giallos. Stars Mimsy Farmer, who of course was in Autopsy, which came out after this. I have reviewed that. She was in, I think, $5 for an August Moon. She was in Body Count, which I have reviewed. That's not a giallo, that's a slasher. I just want to see. It was $5 for an August Moon. Oh, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, excuse me, which I do have. I finally was able to get that. I'm going to do all the Argento films at the end of the marathon because I have a number of them to get to. But it also stars Maurizio Bonuglia, Mario Scaccia, Orazio Orlando, and music was done by Nicola Piovani, which a lot of credit needs to go to the music because Piovani is known for classical music and chamber music, which is smaller quartets. This is not your typical giallo score. It's a lot of the music cues sounded a lot like The Shining, where it's just one like a violin or cello, one note that just keeps getting higher to build tension. It's very, very dark, intense, just, like pure sounds of anxiety and violation, which really, really fit the film and worked really well. And it was written by director Barilli. Of course, it goes out when I'm about to read it. It was written by Barilli and Massimo Davic. And while watching this, I picked up on some of the inspirations, and I looked up afterwards, but there have been several giallo films where I have said it definitely feels like a Polanski film, like Repulsion or Rosemary's Baby. And even All Colors of the Dark by Sergio Martino was directly inspired and influenced by Rosemary's Baby. But I guess in preparation for this, because this movie really is about the inner psychological breakdown of this poor woman, Barilli did talk to psychologists about kind of what happens and what one might experience. And he was very much inspired by Rosemary's Baby as well. In fact, I think this is closer to Rosemary's Baby than All Colors of the Dark, even all the way down to it being in this very large apartment building and all the neighbors kind of being strange. Even the main actress, Mimsy Farmer, I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks this, looks and acts a lot like Mia Farrow. She's this very angelic, sweet, innocent woman, very doe-eyed. Just reminded me a lot of Mia Farrow. And it does come down to, is she going insane? Are people conspiring against her? There is mention of and allusions to black magic and the occult. And it's just a very interesting film. It's a Giallo with a lot more psychological horror thrown into it. And it's another Giallo like, say, Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion, or what was one of the last ones I did where it was kind of similar. Oh well, not important. But one of the last ones I did that's also where it's not like a murder mystery. It's a mystery as to, is she going insane or are people doing this to her? But it's not a murder mystery. And it's beautifully shot. This is probably... It's certainly a contender for a top 10 favorite Giallo film for me. But as far as just how well made it is, it's definitely higher. The usage of wide shots and just how... For a guy who only directed, I think, 2 films, or at least from what I found, this guy knows how to create a scene. And, a lot of the shots in her apartment are these, like, wide shots. So you really feel the space of the room that she's in. The music really opens up every scene it's in. You really feel for Mimsy Farmer. You feel really bad for her. She did a great job with this. She is such the main focus of this film. It's a film kind of like Taxi Driver in the sense that she is in every scene. If anything, I can only recall one scene, and that's when her boyfriend puts on his jacket, turns his TV off to go go out into his car, where she's not in the scene. There are a couple, but she is literally in almost every scene. It does follow her. Now, she plays this woman named Sylvia who is haunted by her past. And the past seemingly is coming back to haunt her. Coincidentally, it's right after this conversation with some of her colleagues and neighbors about black magic, the occult, witch doctors in Africa. Well, she's actually the head of this chemistry lab, and she's very devoted to her job. She has a boyfriend named Roberto, and they go to this fellow professor. They go over to his place, and the set design of his place is like a greenhouse with a bunch of fountains. The way that shot and set up was very nice. Very well done. He's the one that talks to them about black magic and witch doctors. And then that's when sort of everything starts to go downhill for her. Sort of one of the first hints of things kind of being weird is we first see her in a cemetery. She's at this woman's gravestone. We don't know who it is yet. We find out quickly. And there's like these noises around her, like noises you would hear outside. And then it just goes dead silent. It's just cut dead silent. I thought that was a nice touch. But when she gets back from the dinner party, or that other professor's house, she sleeps in till almost 4 in the afternoon and sleeps all through work. And I'm not going to go through each plot point because it does get kind of convoluted, and I still don't fully understand everything. I will admit that. I think a lot of it is open to interpretation. I think this is one of those movies kind of like Sixth Sense or Shutter Island, where if you watch it a second time, knowing what you know after watching it the first time, you'll pick up on more of like the symbolism and the metaphors. But there's just some one like this is actually the stairway in her apartment building, and the way that shot, like, it's always in shadow, and it's just, this movie's beautifully shot. I'll actually have to refer to this. And it starts off small. Like, she goes into this one shop to buy a vase that she's kind of noticed every day. But then they tell her that they've never had the vase that she's describing in the window. And when she goes home, the vase is there. Her neighbor brings her some flowers to put in it. And then she walks her friend out. And then when she goes back in the room, the flowers are dead. It starts off kind of small, like things that could be in her head. Also, there's a scene where she's looking in the mirror. And these scenes, I think, are genuinely creepy. Especially when you have just like those violin screeches. And she sees this woman in a black dress, white polka dots, putting perfume on. And it looks like she's looking directly at her from the mirror. Like it's this vanity chair in the background that she's seeing in the mirror. And we get the idea that's her mother. She's mainly haunted by the vision of her mother and her suicide. And her mother is the one that wears the black dress. I did hear someone say something about the scent of the perfume always being around when these hallucinations are going on, and that's sort of the trigger. I didn't pick up on that, but that is an interesting thought. There's another time when she sees her mother in the black dress when she's looking through a keyhole into her bedroom. And she's at the vanity chair, and just the way she kind of turns, she's brushing her hair, I think. And the way she turns to look at her is just very creepy. Again, the music is just stellar. Also get a vision of her mother having sex with this man that's not her father. She looked like she had a panicked face on, so I'm not sure if it was consensual or not. Judging by the scene that's later in the film, seemingly by the same person, I'm going to say it wasn't, because her father died early on in her childhood as well. So yeah, her mother committed suicide by jumping off a balcony. That same night, she was wearing the black dress with dots. And then at one point, this little girl shows up, who is actually, she's played by Laura Wendell, who was in My Dear Killer. She was also in Tenebrae, Midnight Killer. Maybe I'm confusing her name with some. I think I was confusing her name with the statue girl in Who Saw Her Die. Oh wait, no, that was My Dear Killer. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. So, the naked girl that we saw in My Dear Killer, that was supposedly the statue model, is the young Sylvia in this. And yeah, she was also in Tenebrae. She's kind of a bratty kid, bossy kid, but she tells Sylvia that I live at this address, which was her childhood address. She has this white music box where the dancer inside has a broken arm. same as the one Sylvia has had as a kid. So, seemingly to be the younger version of herself. Now, of course, while all this is going on, all of her neighbors are acting strange. There's this one guy, this elder guy who's into photography. There's an elderly widow who has coffee with her. There's a younger woman named Francesca, the one that brings the flowers to her. And they're all acting kind of benevolent. They're all up to no good, including this professor, the witch doctor professor. Which, in fact, after she sleeps in late, her boyfriend, the professor, and a couple other people are playing tennis together. And when she grabs her racket, there's like a nail sticking out and it pricks her hand. And she starts bleeding. And the guy takes her hand and starts sucking the blood out. And you get like this, like it's very eerie, one note build up from the violin. You know, kind of like, or almost like the Joker from Dark Knight when he's telling his Scar story, how there's that one note that just kind of keeps building, or like music from The Shining. And then when she pulls her hand back, he kind of gives her this creepy smile, which when he was doing that, he reminded me of the groundskeeper from Get Out. Especially when he's telling, the main character, kind of like how he just stands there with that creepy smile. So I think, and I took that as, okay, if we're going with the fact that this cult is in fact conspiring against her, I thought maybe that's the initial, that's how it starts. Because after that, that's with the vase and the flowers and everything. That to me was sort of the catalyst of everything. Then of course things just keep getting worse. At one point, there's this other dinner party at her friend Francesca's house. And I want to say it's that professor's, it's not his wife. It's this other woman, this blind clairvoyant, who's going to perform this reading on Sylvia. Which, the way this was shot was beautifully done as well. Because they're sitting at this table where the side Sylvia's on and the side that the psychic is on, there's a mirror behind them. So when the camera is on them, they're sort of off center and you can see the person across from them. So like when we're looking at the medium or the psychic, out of focus in the mirror is Sylvia with her eyes closed, being red, and you can see her kind of struggling. And then when we look at Sylvia, we just out of focus, we see the psychic. I thought that was shot wonderfully. That's when we find out, that her father was, fell off a boat and drowned. Mother jumped off a balcony to commit suicide. And that there's this bad man. There's like a block that the psychic can't get to. Like there's a memory that she's put away and can't get to. But there's this one man that's a bad man and she can't quite see what the memory is. And that's when Sylvia runs out. But we're guessing it's the same guy that she saw in the vision with her mother, stepfather, boyfriend, whomever. And then the last thing I'll say before I get into spoilers is after that party with the clairvoyant, we see the professor, the clairvoyant, the photographer, everyone who was there go to this old abandoned subway tunnel. They go in, they put on these like gray lab coats, and then they just walk in. And we don't see where they go or what they do. But then Sylvia watches through her peephole the photographer come home, which this is the first time young Sylvia comes over. And she realizes that, is this a trick? Something's messed up. Am I hallucinating? This girl has the same music box as me, looks like me. She runs outside, sees the photographer, asks him to come in, check the house. He checks, doesn't see anything. He has this bag. She sends him on his way, but she notices a drop of red on his shoe. He says he had a nosebleed. He goes home, he takes something out of the bag, puts it on a plate for his cat, and then washes the blood off his shoe. The camera zooms in overhead of what the cats are eating. It's a hand with painted nails. It was a member of someone at that same party. Now, of course, the following morning, all the neighbors are talking about who it is, so we find out who it is, but I'm going to get into spoilers. I can't recommend this enough. Definitely of all the Giallo I've seen that isn't centered around a murder mystery, like Forbidden Photos or Puzzle, I think this one is the best. It's certainly the best made. Even Giallo in general, I think it's one of the best made. Mimsy Farmer is wonderful in the lead. You really feel for her. You really feel like she is breaking down. And she is, you feel bad whether she's having a mental breakdown or outside forces are fucking with her. The music is absolutely phenomenal. It's dark, it's ominous, it's eerie. It's more violin and cello than synth and kind of, more poppy sounding, I guess, that you would get in a Giallo. But it fits perfectly. The cinematography and the editing is absolutely fantastic. The way some of the shots are set up, especially in mirrors. Like whether she sees her mother, or that scene with the psychic. The scenes with mirrors are very well shot. The wide shots in her apartment, so you can really feel the space. It's both agoraphobic and claustrophobic at the same time. And of all the Giallo or Italian films that I've said are either inspired by or feel like a Polanski film, which, yes, this was partly inspired by Rosemary's Baby. But of all the ones I've said that, this is the one that feels the most like if I didn't know anything about the movie, I would have said, like, you could have told me this was a Polanski film and I would have believed you. Not that it's a ripoff, but just how it feels, everything it tries to accomplish and what it's going for, the same as a Polanski film, is done so well. It's so effective. I really enjoyed this, and especially if you like psychological horror films, I think you'll definitely dig this. So, highly recommend Perfume with the Lady in Black. So, with that, I'm going to go into spoilers. So we find out that the woman that was killed, or the hand that was fed to the cats, was Francesca. And so that's when we really get the idea, okay, there's got to be some sort of cult activity going on. The next time we see young Sylvia, she's got this big box, and she gives it to Sylvia, and it's all young Sylvia's dresses. And at the bottom, there's this black cat who I want to say was Francesca's cat. I could be wrong. It was dead, implying that she killed it. But, young Sylvia suggests that they get it stuffed, and so it can look like it's alive, and she's going to live with her now. So she calls out of work for a week, and then she takes the cat to a taxidermist. But she doesn't have any money, and when the guy asks for her address, she puts her childhood address. I don't know if that's just so they can't find her, or if it's because her past is starting to take over and she can't differentiate. But either way, the guy goes out back, and who comes up front is the man from her visions. The guy that was having rough sex with her mother in that hallucination. Supposedly the bad man. And of course, she's horrified. He says, no one lives there. It's like, you remember what happened to your mother. But she runs out, gets in a cab, decides to go to that childhood home, which is all derelict at this point. But that guy shows up, and we have this intense rape scene. Now, it's the way it's shot is because he steps over her, and first, he's angry. He says, like, you remember your mother? She was impaled on spikes on the gate. You did it. Saying it's her fault. Now, I think we're meant to think, she drove her mother to do that for whatever reason. But there's also a vision where, and this is after she sees her through the keyhole, that very creepy scene, where she walks in and she has all these decorations outside on the balcony for an Italian festival. And she's sitting on the balcony, and she just walks up and pushes her nonchalantly. I don't remember the order of that. I want to say that was after the rape scene with the stepdad, we'll say. But, so, he's assaulting her. She grabs a, cinder block, hits him, seemingly dies. She goes to her boyfriend Roberto's home and tries to show, hey, I killed someone. But when they get there, there's no one there. And so now it's really starting to feel like either this is a very elaborate plan, if there is someone after her, or it really is in her head. So then she just goes back home, and she puts on the dress. And she just starts killing people involved in the film, like the photographer. She goes over to his house, kills him with the cleaver, has Roberto come over, because both Sylvias are reading Alice in Wonderland, and they say they can't play yet because the Mad Hatter's missing. So she calls Roberto over, he comes in, she stabs him, sets the bodies of, which it was Nikolai, I think, or Nicola was the stepfather guy. So Nicola, the photographer, Roberto, they're all set up around the table, dead, and she's quoting Alice in Wonderland. And then she goes up to the roof where her and Sylvia, younger Sylvia, jump off. They're sitting on the edge. There's all these decorations, banners, and everything for this festival or this celebration. And what I really like is they're sitting on the edge. It's this wide shot. They're way over here on the edge. We see the set of the roof, all these decorations. They both hug. They go over. We hear Sylvia's, completely broken, psychotically broken down laughter all the way down. And then the thud, the ending of the laughter, and the decorations go away all at the same time. So we hear laughter, then when we hear the landing, right when that happens, it's like a cut and all the decorations are gone, like it was all in her head. I thought that was a very, very well done, very well executed, very smart idea. And so then, of course, and then the last thing we see, or one last thing we see is we see feet of people outside who have gathered. We only see Mimsy Farmer's body. So this younger girl did not exist. Now the ending, I think, is open to interpretation about cult or in her head, which her body is brought back to that abandoned subway tunnel. We see the professor, the blind psychic. They put the lab coats on. They walk to this darkened corridor where her body is laid with the blanket. But we see Roberto, we see Nicola, we see the photographer. People who were killed in the film are standing there. Peel the blanket back, Roberto cuts her open, and then people start digging in, grabbing pieces of her and start eating it. And then it ends with the camera panning back into the darkened tunnel with all these people taking their piece of flesh and, scampering off into their own darkened corridor. What I think that means is that they were all different parts of her psyche. And they're all going to rest into the dark recesses of her subconscious, even though she's dead. And, maybe she did kill those people and this is all in her head. Or it could be that it was a cult and she didn't really kill those people. That was all in her head. And now, because the whole thing with the witch doctor conversation was there are some cults and witch doctors that take these women and they put these curses on them that drive them to madness and suicide, which is essentially what happened to her. Personally, I think it was more about, different parts of her psyche just going off, and the tunnel kind of represented her mind, I guess. But I thought this film was very well done. I really enjoyed it. Definitely a lot of psychological horror mixed into it. Very Polanski. I mean, I know people will not watch a Polanski film just because of who he is, but if you do like Polanski's work, especially his earlier work, I think you will enjoy this. It's got to be my favorite, if not one of my favorite scores for a Giallo film or an Italian film in general. Just that use of really dark chamber music, like string quartets, really effective. The way it's shot, like especially the scenes of her mother in the mirror or through the keyhole, very creepy, very effective. This is one I will give a second watch at some point. I'm not sure when, but maybe there'll be more to pick up on upon a second watch. But I'm sorry this wasn't one of my best reviews. This is a little harder to talk about, kind of like when I did Repulsion, but I really did enjoy this film, and I'm glad I gave it a look. So that was 1974's The Perfume of the Lady in Black, and stay tuned for more Italian horror and Giallo films. Thank you for watching.